Hello everyone and welcome to my Dendrobium forest. My Dendrobiums have been growing so much these past few months, and I've been fertilizing them differently so that as they are going through different stages of their growth that I'm fertilizing them correctly. Many of these have canes growing, roots growing, lots of root growth, and some of them are finally starting to get terminal leaves on their canes. What that means is the final leaf on that cane until it's fully mature. So let me show you what I'm talking about as far as what a terminal leaf on a Dendrobium cane is. Okay, so here's a really good example of a terminal leaf. The leaf that's in the center of this cane is going to be the final leaf on that cane. And so when that one fully grows out, I know that that cane isn't growing any longer. And that's when I'm going to start fertilizing them slightly differently. And here's another really good example. Do you see how I have a lot of root growth here? And this small leaf right here in the center of this top cane, that is going to be its terminal leaf, but it's still growing. So let me show you how I'm fertilizing these at this point while they're in active growth. Okay, there's a lot on this card, right? Because there's a lot of active growth in these Dendrobiums at this time. They either have active canes, their roots are growing, or they might have a spike growing with no bud yet. As long as the spike is growing, this is what I'm doing. I fertilize these 3 times in a row, and then I flush the next time I water with clear water. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a pinch of Epsom salts for the magnesium source, about 1/3 of a teaspoon of Better Grow Orchid Plus, about 20 drops of CalMag, about 30 drops of seaweed extract. It keeps going. For extra potassium, it helps keep the plant hydrated. And that is per gallon of water. And many of you have asked me, what is my TDS of my reverse osmosis water? It is about 10. So I get a total dissolved solids of about 300 parts per million with that mixture. And that's what I'm using on them while they're growing so quickly. And I'm going to keep that regimen going until the buds start forming on these spikes. And then that changes things, because I learned you don't want to give them too many nutrients when they are setting buds. So let me show you the recipe that I'm using for this one. And look at these little buds. They are purple. I can't wait to see what these look like. As you know, this is one that I have never seen bloom before, so I'm really excited. So I'm going to show you the recipe that I use for this one. This is the recipe I'm using for the ones that have the spikes in bud. The buds are forming. What I do is I apply the garden lime, Epsoma garden lime, while the spike is growing, so that there's going to be ample calcium and magnesium while the forming buds are growing. I don't use fertilizer again until the plant is fully bloomed out. It usually doesn't take very long, especially this time of the year. In the wintertime, if you're trying to get one to bloom, it does take a while because they grow slower. But this time of the year, I've noticed they bloom out pretty quickly. So I don't use the fertilizer again until it's totally bloomed out and the blooms have hardened a while, for just a few weeks or for about a month. And several of you have asked me how often I am replenishing my garden lime in my bark and moss orchids. For my bark orchids, I'm reapplying it every 2 months. For the moss, every 2 or 3 months. It just depends. You can usually tell when there's still some in there, but when it looks like it's starting to break down, I go ahead and reapply that garden lime, and it's an awesome source of calcium and magnesium for your blooming orchids. And here's my beautiful Den Luigi, so named because of his color. He is actually a no ID Dendrobium. I just can't call him no ID though. Okay, he's been in bloom now for about 2 months. So he still needs some fertilizer, but not as much as if he was in active growth. So here's the recipe for what I'm using for him right now. Okay, I'm fertilizing this one every other watering. I'm applying the Epsoma garden lime so that they'll have plenty of calcium and magnesium while they're blooming. And then I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of Better Grow Orchid Plus and about 30 drops of seaweed extract. And that's about 150 to 175 parts per million. They still do need fertilizer at this time, just not so much. You want to keep the plant healthy while it's blooming. And let me touch on the garden lime issue for just a moment. Several of you have asked me, am I going to be using that all year long on my dendrobiums? Yes, I am. I'm going to be applying it regularly every 2 or 3 months. I have just noticed such a difference in all of my orchids since I've been using calcium and magnesium supplements on them regularly. And I do believe that that is a really good way to keep them healthy and keep them growing. So in my bark orchids, like I said before, it'll probably be about every other month, every 2 months. In my bark orchids, it just seems like it does kind of flush out easier than with my moss orchids. The moss retains those pellets a little bit more than the bark does. And then in my moss orchids, I'll be applying them about every 3 months because of that reason. And to end today's video, I wanted to show you what I got as an early birthday present from my daughter. She found me another Soho Lawrence Tahiti sunset. She knew I wanted another one, and she found it. They only had one. And here she came. Happy birthday, early, Mom. So I had to share this with you. I am so happy to find another one of these beautiful, beautiful Phals. So I've got it here beside my hummingbird painting that my husband did. I love this painting. Thought the colors looked really pretty with this little Phal. So I hope you all are just having a fabulous day and be highly favored, deeply loved, and greatly blessed. And we'll talk to you all next time.